A blonde woman smiles elegantly. Nobles recognize the Zeldia Empire's princess. Princess Tatis Aldwin walks away gracefully. Meldick assists Princess Tatis Aldwin as she is formally introduced. Spectators gaze in stunned admiration. Gossiping nobles contrast her elegance with rumors of being a terrifying villainess. Tatis attends the international gathering as the Empire's representative. The prosperous Zeldia Empire is hailed as the land of the gods. Flashback reveals the Emperor's cruelty toward a bloodied young Tatis as she begs for mercy. Following her mother's death, Tatis suffered under the Emperor's violent rule, while her stepfamily watched with satisfaction. Tatis was ruthlessly forced to toil over healing potions for the Emperor's army. Cruel words remind Tatis of her barbarian blood despite her forced labor for the crown. While her stepfamily idles, Tatis is buried under their administrative royalty duties. Officials mistakenly praise the princes for policies Tatis actually authored. Her half-brothers smugly accept credit for her hard work. Tatis remains alone in the shadows, exhausted and overlooked. Her red-haired half-sister plots to seduce the crown prince, dismissing Tatis as a rival. The younger woman smiles with malicious intent. Whispers follow Tatis as she walks through the palace halls. Back in the present, Tatis shines at the ball. A dark-haired conqueror enters, his presence marked by a history of slaughter. The ruthless plunderer stands atop a mountain of fallen enemies. Diaval Rey Ataraxia, the terrifying tyrant, is officially introduced. The surrounding nobility cowers in visible fear. To everyone's shock, Tatis greets the tyrant Diaval with a bright, welcoming smile. Diaval stares down at the golden-haired princess. Tatis playfully dismisses his guarded nature, citing the world-class security. She leans in, confidently assuring him that no one will harm them. Tatis radiates charm with a gentle smile. Diaval watches her with intense, red-eyed focus. Diaval sighs and relents, allowing her to lean against him. A sudden, sharp movement startles the princess. The crowd gasps as the atmosphere shifts. Diaval pulls Tatis into a protective embrace, commanding her to stay by his side. Meldick watches the couple from the sidelines with a somber expression. Zephius, a blonde-haired man, prepares to make his move. A newcomer arrives from the rival Lusitania Empire. Crown Prince Zephius Forcraig of Lusitania is formally identified. Diaval aggressively warns the rival prince not to touch Tatis. Zephius ignores the threat, reaching for Tatis with a polite smile. Kiss. Zephius kisses her hand, boldly praising her beauty. The crowd erupts in whispers over the competing imperial suitors. Tension crackles as Diaval physically intervenes between Zephius and the princess. The two powerful men lock eyes in a fierce, silent confrontation. Symbolic beasts snarl behind the rivals as their killing intent fills the room. Tatis looks on, distressed by the growing hostility between them. The ballroom remains tense as the princes refuse to back down. A tarot card symbolizes that Tatis's choice in marriage will reshape the world's balance of power. Music plays on as the high-stakes dance of diplomacy and desire continues. Tatis Aldwin radiates poise and elegance. The golden-haired princess stands surrounded by her powerful suitors. The blonde-haired prince watches Tatis with a soft, knowing gaze. Meldick Elias observes the princess with steady, golden eyes. The black-haired tyrant stares forward with intense, red-eyed focus. Surrounded by attention, Tatis remains the center of imperial desire. The Zeldia Empire celebrates its grand founding festival with cheers. Emperor Magnus Aldwin addresses his subjects with a powerful declaration. The Empress and princes join the milestone anniversary celebration. Second Princess Lies is presented to the admiring public. Citizens praise the beauty of the Empress and Princess Lise. First Princess Tatis Aldwin is formally presented to the crowd. Tatis reflects on her isolation amidst the festive royal procession. Tatis recalls her mother's minority heritage and her former status. Oppressed by her family, Tatis endures the disdain of commoners. Despite her struggles, the princess maintains her quiet inner strength. Tatis resolves to uphold her dignity before the judging public. Magnus praises the people's sacrifice while war victims suffer silently. The emperor calls for unity as the wounded look on. Tatis critiques her father's relentless drive for imperial expansion. Magnus speaks of prosperity while ignoring the human cost of war. Tatis feels a desperate urge to help the suffering people. Orphan children call out to Tatis from the cheering crowd. A guard brutally shoves the children, sounding with a heavy thud. Meldic Elias intervenes, commanding the guard to spare the children. The captain of the royal guard questions the children's intent. A young girl shyly offers a gift intended for Tatis. Tatis remembers the orphans she met during her volunteer service. Magnus concludes his speech as the carriage comes to rest. Meldic gently assists Tatis as she exits the royal carriage. Tatis thanks Meldic while Lies watches with burning resentment. The children rush forward to greet the kind-hearted princess. Tatis asks why they have gathered to see her today. The children reveal a handmade crown of fresh, vibrant flowers. Tatis is visibly moved by the children's heartfelt, simple gift. Nina offers the flower crown with a hopeful, bright smile. Tatis accepts the gesture with genuine joy and deep gratitude. The princess kneels to praise the children for their effort. A sudden, cruel stomp crushes the crown with a snap. Tatis gasps in horror as her gift lies ruined. Lies grinds her heel into Tatis's hand, eliciting a sharp ugh. The malicious second princess looms over her sister with fury. Lies demands to know what Tatis is doing with commoners. The children tremble as Lies's dark aura fills the street. Lies insults Tatis' bloodline while crushing her hand further. The red-haired princess orders the children to stay away. Kyle clings to Lies's dress, desperately begging her to stop. A red-haired prince arrives, inquiring about the growing royal commotion. Lies cries for help, feigning disgust at the filthy child. The prince draws his sword to silence the ruined moment. Tatis screams for the violence to stop as a blade descends. Shielding the boy Kyle, Tatis takes the sword's blow herself. The red-haired prince kicks Tatis aside, shouting for her to stay back. Tatis ignores her pain, checking to see if Kyle is unharmed. Kyle cries out the princess's name as she looks on with sorrow. The red-haired empress looms over Tatis, mocking her for breaking a promise. Emperor Magnus demands an explanation for the chaos during the sacred parade. The empress spitefully claims Tatis intended to disobey the emperor's direct orders. A brutal kick from Magnus sends Tatis reeling while he calls. Tatis cowers on the cobblestones, blood dripping from her mouth in the emperor's shadow. Magnus roughly grabs Tatis by the hair, forcing her to look at him. The emperor heartlessly orders his guards to slaughter the children before Tatis's eyes. A single tear falls as Tatis realizes she is powerless to save them. While commoners beg for mercy, Magnus forces Tatis to watch the grim execution. Gasping for breath, Tatis is haunted by the consequences of her kindness. A traumatic memory resurfaces of a man berating Tatis for using her power. Young Tatis kneels over a lifeless blonde woman, sobbing a desperate apology. The dead woman, Anna, lies in a pool of blood with eyes wide. Overwhelmed by grief and guilt, the young princess screams in total agony. Tatis remembers her vow to never let such a tragedy happen again. Tatis pleads for the orphans' lives as a silver-haired guard looks on. With a sharp backhand strike, Magnus dismisses Tatis's pleas for mercy. The emperor vows to hurt Tatis until she learns total submission. Meldic Elias stands by silently as the emperor and his retinue depart. Tatis remains on the ground, bloodied and staring blankly into the distance. In the present, the clack of her shoes echoes through the palace. Tatis gazes mournfully at the broken remains of the children's flower crown. She resolutely decides to salvage what she can of the precious gift. Tatis plans to press the flowers into bookmarks to keep them forever. She envisions a future where she can bring the children sweets in return. A faint, sad smile touches Tatis's lips despite her lingering pain. A sudden, blood-curdling scream pierces the quiet of the palace halls. Startled, Tatis looks toward the source of the distant, haunting sound. She realizes the scream came from the direction of the banquet hall. Tatis quickly tucks the ruined crown into her pouch, moving to investigate. The scene shifts to the dark, silent corridors leading to the ballroom. Tatis wonders why the palace has suddenly become so unnervingly quiet. She reaches out, slowly pushing open the grand doors to the hall. Tatis peeks inside the room, her eyes widening with a sudden, terrible dread. She stumbles back with a sharp gasp, horrified by the sight within. The princess's face pales as she stares at the unfolding nightmare. Tatis looks down to find her own hand covered in fresh blood. The ballroom has become a graveyard, littered with the bodies of fallen guards. Tatis gasps in shock, recognizing the faces of the recently deceased. She discovers the lifeless bodies of her stepmother and step-siblings among the dead. Trembling and gasping for air, Tatis struggles to understand this sudden massacre. Tatis spots a familiar silver-haired knight lying bloodied on the floor. She rushes to the side of Meldic Elias, calling his name in panic. Tatis realizes his wounds are fatal and begins to despair. Meldic coughs up blood as Tatis cradles him, her world falling apart. Meldic urges Tatis to stay alive. Tatis begs the knight to stay. Her hands glow with desperate power. Divine light envelops the dying soldier. Meldic feels his intense pain fade. Miraculous energy mends his mortal wounds. Tatis realizes her healing has succeeded. Meldic warns of the military invasion. He reveals the royal guard's defeat. Tatis fears the empire's fallen strength. Magnus falls under a brutal strike. A grim silhouette claims the victory. Tatis turns, seeing her father's defeat. Diavel stands over the broken emperor. Red eyes flare amidst a spray. Horror strikes as blood paints reality. Tatis watches the massacre in disbelief. A dark, bloody aura fills space. The armored youth surveys the room. Magnus groans before the young conqueror. Tatis is stunned by his youth. The emperor kneels before a boy. A quick, sharp crunch sounding echoes. Magnus looks back with a plea. The emperor offers Titus for survival. Meldic calls for the princess urgently. The knight struggles against his injuries. A subordinate addresses the silent Diavel. Diavel questions the emperor's desperate offer. Magnus groans as the tyrant watches. Gah! Magnus screams under a kick. Diavel commands the emperor to stay. The princess watches the boy approach. Diavel roughly seizes Tatis's throat. Meldic cries out for her name. He maintains a firm, cold grip. Diavel orders the princess to follow. Blood spatters his pale, cold face. Tatis fears his dark, hidden intentions. The knight is held back helplessly. The tyrant enters the grand chamber. Ugh, she coughs upon the floor. A heavy thump sounding takes her. She notes his horrifying yet pale beauty. Sharp red eyes entrance the princess. Diavel stands as her new master. Tatis is mesmerized by his face. A bloodied blade reflects her shock. She cowers beneath his cold presence. The tyrant looks down at her. Diavel looms over the frightened princess. Tatis's eyes reflect her mounting dread. The blood-stained conqueror gazes down coldly. He collapses with a heavy thud sounding. Diavel commands her to remain still. His red eyes flare with intensity. Eerie purple marks cover his back. Tatis gasps, noticing his hidden wounds. Dark, cursed bruises sprawl across his torso. The boy stares at her silently. She realizes his wounds are incurable. Tatis recalls the cursed sword's legend. Her nanny, Anna, pleads for mercy. Violence erupts with a pained sounding. Young Tatis screams for her nanny. A cursed man begs for death. The pain of the wound is unbearable. Diavel endures that very same agony. Tatis marvels at his incredible endurance. Pained exhales escape his trembling lips. He struggles to maintain his composure. Diavel demands she heal him now. He threatens her with certain death. Tatis stares back in stunned silence. Healing requires direct physical contact. She timidly asks permission to touch.
Diavel snaps for her to hurry.
Tatis reaches out with trembling fingers. She apologizes as he flinches sharply. She resolves to touch him gently. Tatis fears her power is insufficient. Radiant light erupts from her hands. Divine energy mends his cursed skin. Power surges with a bright flash sounding. Diavel gasps as the pain recedes. Golden light floods the grand chamber. Pained breathing echoes in the aftermath. Diavel looks at her in disbelief. Tatis watches him with soft concern. His red eyes focus on her. Diavel realizes he has found her. He suddenly seizes the startled princess. Diavel pins Tatis against the pillows. The conqueror stares her down intensely. He leans in dangerously close. Diavel vows never to let go. He swears she will not escape. Tatis stammers in her sudden confusion. Tatis admits that his movement startled her. Tatis is left reeling from his intensity. Diavel holds the exhausted princess close. A sudden, sharp snap sounding awakens her. Purple cursed marks reappear across his skin. Tatis admits her healing powers have limits. The conqueror watches her with uncharacteristic stillness. Diavel warns her never to forget him. He promises death for any future defiance. Her pouch hits the floor with a thump sounding. Tatis fears for her country's dark future. She realizes she alone must stop him. Tatis barters her service for citizen safety. Diavel repeats her request with mocking disbelief. The cursed marks darken as his rage flares. A bitter, pained laugh sounding escapes his lips. He labels Tatis equally guilty for her luxury. Diavel demands she stop playing the victim. Tatis is struck by his harsh truth. Memories of her father's cruelty resurface painfully. She recalls her own past cowardice and fear. Bloodied flower petals drift through the air. Tatis reaches toward a falling white petal. A warm memory of Anna provides comfort. Golden light radiates from the children's gift. Tears fall onto her bruised, trembling hands. She envisions the children's radiant, happy smiles. Tatis finds a new, ironclad resolve within. She explains that healing alone is insufficient. Tatis confirms her knowledge to the stunned boy. She demands he stop hurting innocent people. Diavel notices her newfound steady composure. A dark smile touches the conqueror's lips. Diavel leads her toward the public balcony. Magnus kneels in defeat before his daughter. The emperor offers Tatis to save himself. Tatis gasps at her father's ultimate betrayal. Diavel drags her away from the coward. The commoners grow restless from the delay. A knight announces the empire's sudden fall. He claims the land for Fairvale's legacy. The black-haired subordinates watch the announcement. Diavel Rey Ataraxia is declared the emperor. The crowd reacts with total, terrified shock. Tatis is paralyzed by the name Fairvale. A sudden, heavy kick sounding shakes the floor. The crowd cheers for their new ruler. Citizens panic as the old empire falls. A firm, sudden grab sounding takes her arm. Diavel kicks the podium with a crash sounding. He vows to spare the royal bloodline. Magnus stares up in absolute, speechless horror. Diavel announces his plan to take Tatis as his wife. The gathered knights react with collective, bewildered shock. A sudden, heavy stomp sounding emphasizes his absolute authority. Diavel declares their future child will be the next emperor. Tatis panics, fearing his dark intentions for the country's future. Commoners wonder if his rule is better than the previous dictator. Tatis shudders at the murderous intent in his eyes. She desperately wonders what he is truly thinking. A sudden, sharp bang sounding echoes as Meldick is seized. Diavel leads the princess away from the captured knight. Meldick's eyes burn with fury as he calls out. The knight hides a shard of glass in his bound hands. A sudden, swift snap sounding frees him from his restraints. Meldick seizes the sword of a startled guard. He strikes down his captor with a heavy thud sounding. Diavel orders Lorenzo to handle the rogue knight. Lorenzo struggles with a pained cough sounding against Meldick's strength. Meldick rushes forward, crying out for the princess. He charges forward with a fierce, determined roar. Swords clash with a sharp clang sounding in the hall. The two warriors exchange intense, silent glares. Diavel parries the blow with a quick swish sounding. Meldick struggles against Diavel's incredible, overwhelming strength. Their blades lock in a desperate, grinding struggle. Tatis screams for them both to please stop. She stands between them as the fighting ceases. A frantic run sounding brings a subordinate to the scene. Meldick strikes back with a sudden, powerful blow. Lorenzo's subordinate falls with a pained ugh. The fallen soldier groans on the floor in defeat. Tatis begs Diavel to uphold his promise of safety. She demands he stop harming the imperial citizens. Tatis is remembered as the placeholder princess who was oppressed. Meldick realizes she negotiated to protect the people. A sudden, firm step sounding underscores Diavel's cold refusal. The surrounding knights watch the confrontation in silence. Tatis panics, realizing Meldick cannot win this lopsided battle. Tatis declares she won't marry if Meldick is hurt. Meldick is stunned by her sudden, risky marriage ultimatum. A sudden, rough grab silences the knight. A subordinate disarms Meldick with a sharp clatter sounding. Meldick is choked with a pained ugh sounding from behind. Tatis cries out in panic for Sir Elias. Diavel commands everyone to stop moving immediately. A heavy, rhythmic stomp sounding signals Diavel's approach. Tatis fears she has made a terrible, irreversible mistake. She searches his face for any sign of mercy. Diavel confirms he is obeying her desperate command. The subordinate reacts with a sharp gasp sounding in surprise. Lorenzo marvels that she moved his cold, vengeful heart. Diavel's subordinates realize she isn't ordinary. Tatis reels from the shocking development. He seizes her chin with force. Diavel toys with the concept of marriage. Elias watches in agony as she blushes. Diavel dismisses the knight with cold disdain. He orders Elias thrown into jail. The knight urges Tatis to stay safe. Diavel promises he will spare the man. He secretly notes his mercy is temporary. Elias calls out to her one last time. He vows to return for his lady. Diavel grows jealous of her lingering gaze. A sudden, firm pull sounding startles her. The scene shifts back to the hall. The grand chamber doors stand silent. Tatis leads the conqueror to her room. She fears his demands for an heir. Diavel stands tall, radiating dark power. Tatis panics over her uncertain fate. She reflects on bringing him to her room. His dark proclamation echoes in her mind. Tatis dreads her impending role as wife. She approaches him with visible, mounting fear. Tatis tentatively thanks him for showing mercy. She questions why he granted her wish. Diavel listens with an unreadable expression. He cites his father's lessons on marriage. He demands confirmation of his logic. Tatis is bewildered by his sudden softness. A rare, gentle smile touches his lips. Tatis recalls Fairvale's legacy of peace. She envisions his lost, happy childhood. Diavel coldly dismisses his tragic past. He demands they return to the curse. Diavel commands her to reveal the secret. He leans in with terrifying intensity. Tatis realizes she lacks concrete evidence. His red eyes flare with sudden suspicion. Diavel threatens her for her silence. He pins her against the wall roughly. Purple energy flares with a sharp zap sounding. Diavel screams with a pained roar sounding. The dark miasma begins to consume him. Tatis cries out in desperate concern. He warns her away from the miasma. Diavel collapses under the agonizing pressure. Visions of the murdered royalty surface. A sudden loud scream sounding erupts. Pained, ragged exhales sounding escape him. Magnus challenges him to test the cursed sword's power. The Fairvale Kingdom advisor watches the young boy's despair. Young Diavel asks why his father was betrayed so cruelly. He labels his former ally a traitor with rage. Diavel's parents were slaughtered by the Empire's ruthless troops. The boy demands the dead be brought back immediately. Present-day Diavel crouches as the purple miasma consumes him. Tatis watches in horror as he clutches his face. The Empire corrupted a loyal subject to destroy his father. Diavel vows to kill the evil god's bloodline forever. He promises total annihilation for everyone in the Empire. Tatis desperately pleads for him to wait and listen. She looks at him with a gaze of soft pity. Tatis realizes he is just a scared, grieving child. A heavy thud sounding follows his rigid, defensive movement. She realizes his rising anger worsens his physical injuries. Tatis begs him to believe in her sincerity. She vows to give everything to break his curse. Diavel rejects her words with a pained, loud scream. Tatis remains resolute despite his violent emotional outburst. She embraces him, promising never to betray his trust. A sudden, radiant glow sounding surprises the stunned princess. Diavel stares at her with intense, glowing red eyes. He demands she let go, but she refuses. Tatis grips him tighter as the warm light intensifies. Diavel reacts with a sharp, pained, ugh sounding. Tatis watches as purple wisps of energy drift away. A massive crash sounding signals a sudden surge of power. Tatis cries out as the dark energy reaches a peak. She is pulled into a memory of his father. Tatis realizes she is seeing Diavel's true biological father. She recognizes the young, crying child as Diavel. Magnus strikes down Diavel's father in the bloody vision. Young Diavel's scream of agony echoes through the past. Tatis realizes she is experiencing his most traumatic memories. The vision shifts to his frantic escape on horseback. The young prince vows to kill the traitor Magnus. He stands coldly among the bodies of the fallen. He swears an absolute oath to kill the wicked god. Present-day Diavel's eyes burn with cold, focused, murderous intent. Tatis feels his immense suffering pouring into her heart. A sharp whir sounding accompanies the shifting energy tendrils. Tatis collapses onto the floor with a pained groan. She awakens in a vast, silent, and white void. Tatis spots the lonely boy sitting in the distance. His memories reveal a total lack of trust in others. He focuses solely on obtaining power to survive alone. Shadows of pure hate loom over the broken child. Tatis notes that the darkness thickens with his emotions. Diavel's red eyes burn with hatred as he vows revenge. A sudden, quick gasp sounding escapes Tatis as she watches him. Gory visions of the slaughtered royal family flood the scene. Diavol's silhouette stands coldly amidst the horrific, bloody carnage. Tatis is paralyzed with horror at his ruthless punishment. He screams with a pained roar sounding, vowing total annihilation. Tatis realizes his intense hatred is feeding the dark curse. Diavol collapses as the purple miasma begins to consume him. A pained, loud scream sounding erupts as the energy peaks. Tatis looks upon his suffering with deep, soft pity. She pulls him into a desperate, comforting embrace. Tatis pleads for his trust, wanting to end his cycle of hate. She smiles gently while cradling his head in her lap. Diavel stares up at her with stunned, speechless wonder. Tatis reacts with a start as the energy suddenly shifts. A spectral image of the young boy watches over the fallen man. A soft sigh sounding of relief escapes her as the darkness fades. She tenderly asks if his agonizing pain has finally stopped. Diavel marvels at the strange, calming sensation of her touch. Tatis is startled as the atmosphere suddenly changes. He pulls her into a firm, protective embrace as light sparkles. They hold each other in the now silent chamber. Tatis stares into the distance, processing the intense moment. A soft exhale sounding signals that he has finally fallen asleep. She groans with a pained sounding under his heavy weight. Tatis looks down with a sudden, soft sigh sounding of relief. She stays by his side as he rests peacefully. Looking at him, she realizes how young he truly is. A memory of Diavel as a blood-stained warrior flashes by. Tatis recalls her own passive witness to her father's failures. She vows to protect him now that her father is gone. She watches his sleeping face with new, quiet resolve. The pair remains together on the floor beneath the chandelier. Tatis closes her eyes, sharing a moment of quiet peace. Diavel awakens with a sudden, sharp gasp sounding in surprise. She smiles warmly as he returns to the present. He continues to watch her with an unreadable expression. Tatis looks away, feeling a bit flustered by his gaze. A sudden, quick scramble sounding follows her apologetic retreat. She tries to compose herself after the intimate moment. Diavel sits up, his expression returning to its cold mask. Tatis looks toward the door as someone enters. He observes her with a hint of renewed curiosity. Tatis gathers her strength for the challenges ahead. A man introduces himself as the chief advisor, Raven Velkas. She formally introduces herself as Latisse Aldwin. Raven notes that the cursed king usually cannot sleep at all. He wonders if her presence is the key to his peace. The advisor reminds the king of an impending negotiation. Attendants arrive with water to begin their morning preparations. A splashing gush sounding follows as attendants fill the tub. Latisse reacts with shock to the morning bathing routine. Raven asks if they should relocate the bath. He explains that hot water worsens the king's wound. Latisse pities his inability to experience simple comforts. She interjects with a bold and sudden suggestion. Latisse requests the king join her for the bath. A radiant light flows from her powerful divine ability. A soft, quick exhale sounding escapes him as he reveals his scars. A soft, quick splash sounding follows her gentle reassurance. The king watches her with deep, red-eyed intensity. Diavel silently turns toward the waiting water. A relaxing splash sounding echoes as he enters the tub. A rare, content look finally softens his cold expression. A soothing splash sounding accompanies his newfound relief. Diavel marvels at her incredible and unexpected power. A light splash sounding underscores her cheerful expression. Latisse recalls being bathed by her loving mother. Young Lattice laughs with joy during the memory. Her mother watches over her with a tender gaze. The woman's kind, smiling face fills the vision. Lattice credits her mother's lessons for her current kindness. She offers her aid whenever his pain returns. A sudden, sharp pull sounding startles the blonde princess. A rhythmic, low thud sounding captures her racing heart. Diaval searches her eyes for any sign of fear. They share an intimate, silent moment in the steam. The king asks why she is not afraid. Lattice stares back with wide, blue, unwavering eyes. He studies her face with deep, unreadable intensity. Diaval sinks back into the water, deep in thought.
He remembers how his wound causes loss of control.
He labels himself a monster, but she protests. Lattice thinks of the one person who loved him. A silhouette of a kind man appears from memory. Young Diaval screams in agony as dark magic erupts. Servants call out for the Lord's safety in panic. Guards struggle to hold the thrashing, cursed child. The wounded attendants recoil from his violent power. The boy stands alone in the cold darkness. A gentle hand rests reassuringly on his shoulder. The brown-haired man offers a kind, hopeful smile. A comforting, firm grip sounding reassures the young lord. A heavy, loud thud sounding follows his sudden kick. A violent, blasting burst sounding erupts from his magic.
Hugo desperately calls for the boy's safety from afar.
He warns that the weakened fence is dangerous. The cursed boy lashes out violently at his protector. A desperate, tight grip sounding anchors the terrified boy. A massive, sudden crash sounding ends the tragic vision. A sudden, quick guff sounding follows the boy's struggle. Diaval rushes forward as chaos suddenly erupts. A long, sudden scream sounding marks Diaval's agony. Hugo's voice escapes in a sudden, quick, ah sounding. Hugo falls as the prince watches helplessly. Diaval calls for Hugo among the ruins. Despair fills Diaval's eyes at the sight. Hugo lies dead amidst the shattered stone. Adult Diaval looks back at his younger self. Roland blames the boy for Hugo's death.
Roland chokes the boy, calling him a monster.
A knight pulls Roland away from the child.
Diaval responds with a soft, sudden arg sounding.
The child prince wishes he had died instead. The boy hears cold political whispers nearby. Advisors prioritize the crown over the prince. Diaval listens and weeps for the fallen. Thorns of guilt pierce the child's heart. A vision of Hugo's smile haunts him. Present-day Diaval declares himself a monster. He warns Lattice to keep her distance. Lattice cries, surprising the scarred warrior. She finds his casual self-hatred tragic. The princess laments his many years of pain. Lattice promises he is no monster anymore. Lattice vows to stop him from now on.
Diaval looks on with a stunned expression.
White flowers bloom in the tranquil garden. Silent tears stream down Diaval's scarred face. The stoic warrior finally breaks into tears. Sunlight illuminates a bouquet of white flowers. A single tear falls onto his hand. Diaval's eyes widen in sudden, quiet shock. He realizes with surprise that he is crying. He watches the princess from behind. Lattice admits her healing has a limit. She offers a sad smile while he watches.
A close shot of his red eye.
Lattice risked everything for a reckless choice. Diaval warns her to prioritize her life. The princess looks down with deep resolve. She prepares to reveal her true reason. Diaval questions her sudden, cryptic words. Lattice looks away, overwhelmed by her thoughts. She must break the curse to heal him. Lattice mentions the sword that wounded him. Her mother forged the cursed blade long ago. Diaval is frozen by the shocking revelation. He stands, demanding to know the truth. A map shows her mother's island nation. Her mother smiles while gathering ripe yellow fruit. She wielded powers of both healing and cursing. Learning this, the emperor invaded her peaceful island. He forced her into marriage using the islanders. He eventually threatened to kill her young daughter. She created a cursed sword to protect Lattice. The dark blade was forged in purple energy. She secretly tried to break the sword's curses. Her secret efforts were eventually discovered by guards. The emperor brutally punished her for her defiance. On her deathbed, she whispered to young Lattice. The girl begged her mother to stay quiet. Her mother lamented the suffering the sword caused. She pleaded with Lattice to break the curse. She believed only Lattice possessed the necessary power. Lattice cried out as her mother passed away. Diavel curses the wicked god's heartless, cruel actions. Lattice vows to fulfill her mother's dying wish. She clenches her fist with renewed, quiet determination. She promises to free him from his suffering. Diavel listens to her oath with silent intensity. Lattice begs him to never push her away. He asks her to prioritize her own safety. He fears losing the only one who cares. Lattice offers him a warm and reassuring smile. She feels the weight of her sacred duty. Diavel watches her with a softening, thoughtful gaze. She smiles at the bond forming between them. He acknowledges her words with a simple affirmation. They share a quiet moment of mutual understanding. He looks at her with deep, unreadable eyes. Alvi slams the table, furious about the marriage. He demands they execute the remaining royal guards. Raven insists Diavel is simply being strategically ruthless. He warns that their lord shows no mercy. Rhythmic, sharp clicks sounding echo through the long hallway. Diavel instructs Lattice to prepare for their discussion. The knight leads her to Diavel's private chambers. Lattice enters the room with a curious expression. Diavel wears an elegant black and red attire. He looks dignified and every bit a king. Lattice is completely breathless at his royal appearance. She admires his regal and powerful new look. Diavel decides to assign her a personal knight. He gestures toward the waiting purple-haired soldier. Lattice wonders if the soldiers will truly serve. She questions if they can accept their roles. Serving an enemy princess is a heavy burden. Diavel leads her toward the bowing loyal knights. A sharp, rhythmic thud sounding follows their entry. 3 former Royal Guard knights, Randolph, Eric, and Serge, are introduced. Lattice reacts with shock as she recognizes the men. Gory memories of the knights during the slaughter surface. Diavel addresses the knights, announcing a specific request. He declares that the princess will be the one choosing. The knights are visibly stunned by the sudden order. Lattice and Diavel stand together, facing the hesitant soldiers. Diavel explains her presence is essential for imperial rule. A radiant aura surrounds Lattice as she faces them. The knights look up at the princess with uncertainty. Lattice looks troubled, sensing the heavy atmosphere. Diavel asks if they refuse to serve the princess. Serge insists they will obey Diavel, but cannot serve her. A tense silence settles as the brown-haired man speaks. Serge begins to reveal the tragedy of Randolph's family. Horror-filled visions of Randolph's slaughtered family flood the scene. Lattice is paralyzed with horror at the knight's past. Serge explains why loyalty is impossible to give freely. A sudden, sharp gasp sounding escapes Lattice at their resentment. She realizes the depth of the wounds her family caused. Serge states their hearts cannot follow the king's order. Randolph bows, apologizing for their inability to serve her. Diavel watches the scene with cold, red-eyed intensity. A rhythmic, low thud sounding captures Lattice's racing heart. She leans into the king's back, trembling from guilt. The 3 knights remain bowed in silent defiance. Diavel winces with a sharp, sudden throb sounding. He stares ahead, his jaw tight with silent resolve. Diavel acknowledges their pain, but insists she needs guards. Latisse suggests using temporary guards to avoid further conflict. Diavel shuts her down, declaring ordinary guards are insufficient. She looks at him with wide blue eyes, startled.
Diavel suddenly orders the release of a specific prisoner.
Latisse is stunned to hear the name Meldic Elias. A silver-haired man sits chained in a cold cell. Meldic looks up with a sharp, quick start sounding.
Diavel arrives at the prison with his knights.
The silver-haired man watches the king with weary suspicion. Randolph calls out to his lord in the hallway. He questions the decision to release the dangerous prisoner. Diavel declares Meldic will be her dedicated guard knight.
Meldic stares at the king with utter disbelief.
The silver-haired knight asks why he was specifically chosen. A metallic, loud clank sounding echoes as he stands.
Diavel dismisses any hope of escape with a smile.
He mentions Latisse's promise, leaving Meldic deeply confused. Diavel draws his weapon with a sharp, quick shring sounding. He places the cold steel against Meldic's throat. Diavel vows to kill him instantly if he betrays them. Latisse nervously prepares to receive her guest. Meldic is roughly handled by fellow knights. Latisse looks shocked and pained, clutching herself. Meldic offers a warm and gentle smile. Latisse looks at Meldic with hopeful eyes. A sudden, heavy thud sounding follows his catch. Latisse apologizes for her sudden, overwhelming weakness. Meldic looks at the princess with concern.
He warns her of the castle's danger.
A map highlights potential neutral territories for asylum. Meldic urges her to escape the palace immediately. Latisse firmly refuses to abandon her suffering people. Meldic questions her ability to help alone. He insists on seeking reinforcements from other nations. A firm, tight grip sounding underscores her resolve. Latisse speaks of Diavel's deep, painful wounds. Meldic is confused by her mention of promises. She explains her vow to heal the king. Meldic recalls the horror of the cursed sword. He doubts any victim can remain sane.
Meldic is moved by Latisse's incredible kindness.
Latisse reveals her mother created the curse.
She remembers her mother's desperate, dying wish.
Latisse declares she must break the curse.
Meldic pities the burden she has carried.
She begs him to help save Diavel. Meldic fears the neighboring nation's inevitable reaction. A dark premonition shows the country's collapse. A radiant light flows from a shared memory.
Meldic chooses her path, regardless of hope.
He decides who he will serve forever. Meldic accepts her wish to stay here. A heavy, low thud sounding marks his kneel. Latisse looks surprised as he takes her hand.
Meldic pledges his entire life to her protection.
He seals his devotion with a kiss. Latisse beams, grateful for his unwavering loyalty.
Meldic joyfully acknowledges her as his true liege.
Latisse smiles, expressing her trust in Meldic. Meldic watches her with a determined, focused gaze. The king's cold presence looms behind them. Latisse stands amidst a storm of magic. A sudden realization leaves Latisse looking horrified. Meldic's eyes burn with a dark, murderous intent. Latisse reveals Diavel is meeting with Duke Orsia. Meldic is visibly shaken by the news. The three Grand Ducal families are formally introduced. Duke Orsia and Duke Elias's roles are detailed. Duke Tyrant leads the powerful Imperial Council. Meldic questions the king's meeting with Orsia. He suspects high-level treachery within the military. The council gathers in the cold Grand Hall.
Duke Valgren Orsia praises Diavel's latest political maneuver.
He questions the king's motives regarding the princess. He reminds Diavel of their previous marriage arrangement. Diavel coldly denies ever agreeing to the arrangement. The aide notes the people's respect for royalty. A handwritten scroll mentions Lady Lattice is alive. He suggests her bloodline is essential for rule. Orsia sweats as the aide expresses feigned relief. The Duke silently plots to eliminate the princess. He agrees to wait while planning high-level treachery. Dieval remains stoic and unmoved by the Duke. Latisse and Meldick discuss the shifting political landscape. A shocking document outlines a potential new government. Meldick recognizes Duke Orsia's signature with growing dread. They realize the military is backing the Duke. Dieval explains why the other families cannot resist. He tasks Meldick with securing his family's approval. Meldick looks panicked, questioning the king's ultimate goal. Dieval mentions a new and troublesome political development. He reveals Orsia's proposal to make Julia empress. Latisse is frozen by the news of Julia. The Duke's daughter is hailed as a rose. Pink-haired Julia dominates high society with her beauty. Latisse feels like a shadow beside the radiant noblewoman. Meldick watches the princess with deep, silent concern. A sharp, quick click sounding follows Dieval's approach. He pulls Latinus into a sudden, firm embrace. Dieval declares he never intended to accept Orsia. Latisse blushes deeply as he rejects the Duke. Meldick senses the intense tension between the pair. He realizes Orsia might attempt to kill Latisse. Dieval appoints Meldick as Latisse's exclusive guard knight. He orders the knight to eliminate any threats. Meldick bows, accepting his new duty with resolve. The knight is dismissed, leaving the couple alone. They stand together in the vast, empty hall. Latisse asks to be released from his grip. A sudden, quick tug sounding pulls her closer. A heavy, sudden thud sounding follows their fall. Latisse looks up at him with wide eyes. Dieval asks if she finds their marriage repulsive. He pins her down, his gaze intensely searching. Latisse denies his fear with a tearful expression. The scene shifts to a bright royal ballroom. Guests admire the beauty of the empire's ladies. Latisse stands alone, feeling like a decorative piece. A red-haired lady highlights Latisse's supposedly fading youth. The princess is left in a hollow silence. A lone candelabra illuminates the empty, dark hallway. Latisse laments being known as the old princess. She is startled by a mention of House Olsia. Dieval refuses to see her as only ornamental. He praises her dedication to her people's safety. He remembers her bravery during his loss of control. A magical flashback shows a woman's agonizing sacrifice. Dieval questions the motive behind her selfless actions. Latisse notices the scar on his trembling hand. A young, cursed Dieval huddles alone in darkness. A vision of a beautiful, crowned woman appears. He declares she is the nation's true mother. Latisse hides her face, overwhelmed by his sincerity. Dieval's gaze softens against a background of roses. He tenderly admires her while touching her hair. Latisse blushes intensely at the prince's bold touch. She is captivated by the intensity in his eyes. He vows to show everyone her true value. 3 days pass at the magnificent royal palace. Dieval arrives dressed in regal, ornate, formal clothes. He is pleased with his choice of the princess. Latisse appears in a stunning, jeweled red gown. Meldick is breathless at her radiant appearance. Dieval mentions the traditional summer tossing of sweets. The princess looks up at him, feeling anxious. He notes that the city has remained peaceful. Happy townspeople enjoy the safety of their homes. Meldick watches the interaction with a serious expression. Dieval reflects on their control over the country. Scenes of clinics and kitchens show his reforms. Meldick is shocked by the speed of progress. Dieval proudly declares the capital's newfound peace. A huge crowd gathers below the castle balcony. A man with a monocle watches with interest. The couple appears, leaving the knights in awe. They step toward the balcony to face the people. The citizens erupt with joy at their arrival. Diaval and Lettice stand before the cheering masses. People whisper about the princess's incredible beauty. Lettice shines as the people recognize her true self. Excited children wave and cheer for their princess. Lettice offers a warm smile to her subjects. Little voices praise her elegance and kind heart. The crowd realizes she led the charity efforts. Lettice feels humble despite the overwhelming public praise. Diaval watches her with a look of possessive pride. Many hands reach up toward the royal couple. The princess is momentarily startled by the adoration. Diaval offers a blessing for the summer solstice. Children celebrate with bags of festive holiday treats. Lettice laughs happily while enjoying the shared moment. A blue bird soars over the expansive royal palace grounds. A soft, sudden chirp sounding marks the bird's arrival. Reading the message, the blonde man smiles with satisfaction. He instructs Vigo to prepare for their next move immediately. He declares his intent to rescue the captive princess. Sunlight filters through the palace windows as morning arrives. Lettice watches over Diaval as he prepares for coronation. She reflects on the need for council and church approval. The empty throne awaits the decision of high authorities. Lettice notes that Diaval's cursed wound has significantly improved. She suggests he makes a change for his public appearance. Diaval refuses to let anyone touch his hair besides her. Lettice insists that a proper first impression is crucial. A sudden, heavy thump sounding echoes her racing heart.
Diaval pulls Lettice close as flowers bloom around them.
He agrees to a haircut only if she performs it. A soft, sudden thump sounding marks her flustered surprise. Lettice wonders if his healing is affecting her heart. The Imperial Council gathers within their grand, ornate chamber. Dark shadows loom over the impending political transition. The council members recall Diaval's past as an invader. They doubt the church will ever support such tyranny. A sharp, quick creak sounding marks the door's opening. Diaval and Lettice enter the chamber looking truly regal. The council is stunned by the couple's incredible transformation. Meldick and the other knights watch the proceedings intently. The silver-haired knight observes the council's wary reactions. The council members rise as the royal pair approaches. A red-haired noble invites Diaval to take his seat. Duke Fernart realizes high lords are already supporting Diaval. Diaval and Lettice take their places on golden thrones. Diaval challenges the council to object to his coronation. He calls for a vote of favor from the room. The red-haired noble raises his hand in immediate support. Another high-ranking official quickly follows with his vote. Most council members yield, leaving Duke Fernart in shock. Fernart argues that the church would never approve an infidel. The Duke is silenced as the Cardinal suddenly appears. The Cardinal offers a warm, knowing smile to the room. Lettice is completely shocked by the High Priest's arrival. Diaval reveals that he was the one who summoned him. A soft, sudden rustle sounding marks the Cardinal's approach. He recalls Lettice's years of selfless service to others. The Cardinal officially offers the Church's support to both. Duke Fernart realizes his political leverage has vanished entirely. A soft, sudden rustle sounding follows Diaval's dismissive turn. The desperate Duke shouts warnings of an impending war. The council whispers about the impossibility of winning. A sharp, quick clack sounding marks the guard's resistance. The blonde man reacts with fury at being barred entry. Diaval orders the dark-haired knight Doran to stand down. A loud, sudden bang sounding marks a grand interruption. Lettice and Diaval look back with wide-eyed shock. A blonde man arrives amidst a flurry of flowers. Meldick is stunned to recognize the crown prince of Lusitania. The newcomer is identified as Prince Zephius Forcraig. Zephius is the powerful heir to a dominant nation. He is titled as the ruler of the Great Seas. The council members are visibly shaken by the intrusion. Zephyus reaches for the princess with a confident gesture. He tells Latisse that she can finally rest easy. Diavol's eyes narrow with dangerous, glowing red intensity. The warrior prince tightly grips his sword hilt. Zephyus mockingly brings up Diavol's former innocence. He praises Latisse's sudden and impressive elegance. Zephyus wonders why he was excluded from the meeting. He takes the princess's hand with possessive intent. Zephyus claims to be Latisse's only legitimate fiancé. The blonde prince looks on with a smug expression. Zephyus prepares to formally introduce himself to everyone. Diavol glares with a look of pure, cold hatred. Zephyus declares his empire as Zeldia's sole ally. He reaffirms his claim as the princess's rightful fiancé. Zephyus asks Latisse to confirm his bold statement. The royal trio stands in the silent council chamber. Diavel is revealed as the fallen prince of Fairvale. Diavol declares that he is currently engaged to Latisse.
Zephyus mocks Diavol's ability to rule the empire. The Zeldia Empire's flag symbolizes its great power.
A flashback shows the late emperor's strategic alliances. Zephyus challenges the potential of such a young rival. Meldic worries about other nations striking during chaos. Zephyus points out the weakness of Zeldia's navy. Nobles fear Zeldia will be destroyed without protection. Zephyus protests the invasion as an intolerable atrocity. The council argues for the throne's rightful return. Zephyus strongly endorses Latisse as the new empress. Latisse and the council are completely caught off guard. Zephyus speaks of Latisse ascending to the throne. He proposes a prosperous union between their nations. A noble is shocked by the marriage proposal. He envisions the birth of a historically great empire. The council members quickly voice their total agreement. Latisse tries to stop the rush toward coronation. She asserts that secession is for her people. Latisse tells Zephyus to stop interfering in affairs. Zephyus reflects on her incredible growth and spirit. He finds her newfound defiance increasingly interesting. Zephyus looks down at the determined princess. He requests a private discussion about their future. Blonde Latisse stands in her ornate regalia. A sharp, quick creak sounding follows Diavel's clench as Latisse worries for Zeldia's future and asks to speak privately. Diavel orders Meldic to guard the princess while he speaks with the other man. A sharp, quick swish sounding marks the arrival of Prince Zephyus, captain of the Royal Knights.
Zephyus claims the princess's presence would make open conversation impossible, leaving the silver-haired knight visibly sweating.
The blonde prince smiles, insisting he would never harm the woman he considers precious.
Diavol stares ahead coldly, calling the other man truly blind to the situation.
Zephyus's expression hardens as he warns them not to underestimate his resolve. A tense spark of magical energy crackles between the two rival princes. Latisse steps between the men, begging them both to stop their fighting. The princess decides to leave the room with Prince Zephyus as requested. Latisse smiles radiantly among white roses, guaranteeing Zephyus is a true gentleman. A sharp, quick creak sounding punctuates Diavol's fury as he reluctantly acknowledges her departure. A sharp, quick clink sounding follows Zephyus's grip on his sword as he notes the invader gave permission. Latisse looks shocked and rattled by the lingering tension between the two leaders. Zephyus leads Latisse along a path surrounded by shimmering purple flowers. A sharp, quick creak sounding follows Diavol's clenched fist as his aide calls out his name. Zephyus gently suggests they go somewhere quiet where they can speak privately. A rhythmic, steady clack sounding follows their walk through the palace's grand, sunlit hall. A sharp, quick gasp sounding startles Latisse as Diavol's aide watches them from the shadows. Latisse looks at her companion with a mixture of uncertainty and hesitation. Diavel's red eyes burn with an intense and dark rage. Zephyus asks Latisse why she has come here, looking concerned for her well-being. He recalls his childhood promise to always come to her when she is in trouble.
Zephyus playfully teases Latisse about her forgetfulness, while she insists she would never forget.
Latisse realized he still remembers the childhood promise she thought only she held dear. A flashback reveals a younger, nervous Latisse being dressed by her brown-haired maid. She reflects on the daunting prospect of meeting a prince from a distant nation. Her maid encourages her to remain confident for her meeting with Prince Zephyus. Young Laudis fears her father's potential scolding if she fails to impress the guest. The scene shifts to the bright, ornate exterior of a royal balcony. Young Prince Zephyus is formally introduced to Latisse and her family. Latisse stares at the young prince with wide-eyed, sparkling blue wonder. Zephyus smiles warmly, expressing his joy that such a cute girl is his fiancée. Her brother, King Aldwin, scolds her for spacing out during the important introduction. A rhythmic, steady clack sounding follows her nervous greeting as Zephyus tells her not to be scared. Zephyus wonders if he appears too frightening to the young, trembling princess. A soft, sudden sigh sounding escapes Latisse as she looks up at her handsome fiancé. She looks at him with realization and shy, burgeoning admiration. Zephyus takes her hand with royal grace as the gardens bloom around them. In the present, Zephyus presents Latisse with a large and beautiful bouquet of sunflowers. Latisse is genuinely surprised and touched by the prince's thoughtful gift. The pair walks through the palace grounds together, holding hands in the light. They share tea and pastries while enjoying the peaceful garden atmosphere. A blue butterfly captures Latisse's sudden attention as she sits in the sunlight. A sudden, quick dash sounding follows her run toward a storage shed she recognizes as her mother's. A sharp, sudden thud sounding follows her entry as she demands to know who is inside. Two men explain they were ordered by the empress to trash the former queen's belongings. Latisse is shattered, remembering a past moment of mourning by her mother's gown. Blonde Latisse desperately begs the man to stop destroying her mother's belongings. The red-haired empress mocks the former queen's legacy with a smirk. Latisse's horror grows as her mother's portrait is insulted by her stepmother. A sharp, quick slap punctuates the empress's cruel, low-born insult. The blonde princess reels back in shock and pain from the blow. Zephyus suddenly appears, shielding the trembling princess in his arms with concern. He commands Latisse to cover her ears while confronting her cruel stepmother. The empress panics, fearing she has angered the powerful prince of Lusitania. Zephyus declares that insulting his future consort is an unforgivable offense. The terrified woman offers her deepest apologies to the furious prince. He gently tells Latisse she can finally open her eyes again. Zephyus laments the cruelty she has endured alone for so long. He promises to protect her and have her mother's treasures restored. Latisse wonders why he would show her such unexpected and deep kindness. A soft, sudden sigh sounding follows as he wipes her tears away. Zephyus holds Latisse in a warm, protective embrace to soothe her. The princess is visibly surprised by his sudden and intense affection. He swears to always come for her whenever she is troubled. Zephyus vows to stay by her side regardless of what happens. The scene shifts to the pair sitting together in grand regalia. Zephyus questions why she is now engaged to another man. Latisse looks at him with wide, tear-filled eyes and visible sorrow. The red-haired empress watches them from the shadows with a cold gaze. They sit in the grand hall, surrounded by a heavy atmosphere. He claims her current engagement is surely against her true will. Zephyus is certain that everything has been orchestrated to keep them apart. Latisse is confused by his sudden and suspicious claim about her engagement. A flashback reveals events from 5 years ago in the prince's study. Zephyus reads a letter proposing a sudden switch of royal brides. The aide presents a portrait of Lise as the proposed replacement. He refuses to believe Latisse had a sudden change of heart. Zephyus immediately prepares for a hurried departure to the kingdom of Zeldia. He intends to speak with the Zeldian royals directly about the matter. Magnus claims his daughter refuses to see the prince at this time. Zephyus demands to know the actual reason behind her sudden refusal. The empress suggests he forget Latus and choose her beautiful daughter instead. Red-haired Lise is formally presented as the new potential bride. The girl is captivated by the stunning appearance of the prince. Lise smugly believes she is much better suited for him than Latisse. She curtsies gracefully while introducing herself to the visiting prince. Zephyus compares her unfavorably to Latis's pure and divine beauty. He describes Latis as a modest wildflower blooming in the mountains. He contrasts Latisse with the flashy and poisonous flower that is Lisette. Zephyus confirms that Latisse is the only one who holds his heart. He declares that all other women have lost their charm to him. The prince politely declines the king's supposedly wonderful proposal of a replacement. Magnus reflects on the daughter he once cast aside as useless. The king insists that a cancellation of the alliance is absolutely intolerable. Zephyus threatens to replace himself with any of his many handsome brothers. He mockingly suggests they choose whichever groom they like from his siblings. Prince Zephyus dismisses himself to greet Princess Latisse personally. Latisse gazes out the window with a lonely, distant expression. She wonders why the prince has returned after all this time. Memories of lies clinging to him still haunt her heart. A soft, sudden sob sounding escapes as she recalls her heartbreak. In truth, Zephyus had coldly rejected Liza's unwanted advances. A rhythmic, steady clatter sounding follows the knights trying to block him. The prince stood defiant against the entire royal guard. He fruitlessly requested an audience and wrote letters for years. He steeled his resolve to church become a man worthy of her. 5 long years passed in quiet, focused preparation. Every battle he fought was dedicated solely to her. He expanded his empire's power to secure their shared future. Latisse is stunned to learn she was never forgotten. She realizes his interest in her never truly faded. He clarifies the painful misunderstandings of their broken engagement. Zephyus offers a second chance at their royal union. Meanwhile, the royal council session is temporarily adjourned. Meldic watches warily as Diavel leaves the meeting hall. The silver-haired knight senses a looming, dark confrontation. Latisse's breath hitches as a sudden shadow falls over her. A sudden, quick bang sounding marks Diavel's forceful entry. Diavel demands an explanation with a murderous, glowing gaze. Zephyus remains unfazed while keeping the princess close. He mockingly invites the dark-haired man to join them. A sharp, quick click sounding follows Diavel's grip on his sword. Latis intercedes to prevent the two men from clashing. She pulls away while offering a soft, sorrowful apology. Latisse firmly chooses her current path as Diavel's fiancé. Zephyus questions if she can be happy with an invader. Diavel pulls her back, but she resists his control. The prince acknowledges the urge to settle things by force. He argues for the immense prosperity Lusitania offers Zeldia. A map illustrates the power of their combined empires. He promises a future where the common people flourish. Conversely, he warns of the destruction and war Diavel brings. He lectures the princess on the true meaning of love. Latisse fears for Diavel's fate in the prince's vision. Zephyus coldly declares that execution is the only solution. He believes mercy only invites future rebellion and violence. A heavy, wordless tension hangs between the princess and Diavel. Latisse reveals she knows the truth about the cursed blade. The image of a terrifying, purple-flamed sword appears. She shocks Zephyus by revealing her mother forged it. Latisse identifies Diavel as the curse's most tragic victim. A sharp, quick creak sounding follows her vow to free him. With tears in her eyes, she rejects the prince's proposal. Zephyus ponders the deep-seated motivations behind her choice. He dismisses her devotion as misplaced sympathy for an orphan. Lettice acknowledges the weight of leaving her home for Lusitania. Lettice stands tall while the prince contemplates controlling the country through her. Zephyus smugly questions the dark-haired man about the political reality. The blonde princess displays a newfound, unwavering resolve in her eyes. A flashback shows young Zephyus waiting expectantly in the palace. He recalls Lettice being his only source of comfort and light. Zephyus rises to greet her before his first military departure. She presents him with a beautiful purple gemstone cross necklace. The young prince is deeply moved by her thoughtful parting gift. He promises to treasure the necklace as they share a tender moment. In the present, Zephyus praises her saint-like heart and steadfast will. He declares her the perfect ideal for a future queen. Lettice nervously attempts to address the matter of their broken engagement. Zephyus ignores the protest, asking if he still has a chance. He dismisses her sense of obligation in favor of true love. A soft, sudden peck sounding follows as he leans toward her cheek. Zephyus cheekily promises to save a real kiss for the future. Diavel watches the interaction with a murderous, glowing red gaze. The prince steals a quick kiss while the princess remains frozen. Lettice touches her cheek in shock as a blush creeps up. Zephyus swears to always protect her whenever she is in trouble. The princess looks at him with a complex mix of emotions. She firmly reminds him that their royal engagement is currently void. Diavel intervenes, demanding the prince refrain from such intimate gestures. Zephyus closes his eyes and offers a polite, calculated apology. The pair stands together, wary of the prince's next move. He proposes they both act with self-control until Lettice chooses. A sharp, quick breath sounding follows Diavel's reluctant agreement. Zephyus suddenly questions the dark-haired youth about his actual age. Diavel bluntly reveals that he is only 17 years old. Lettice is completely blindsided by the revelation of his young age. She stammers an apology for the sudden, awkward interruption. The princess realizes their original engagement began the year he was born. Zephyus mockingly laughs at the massive age gap between them. Diavel bristles at the insult while Lettice processes the shocking truth. She fears how he will react upon learning her true age. Zephyus shifts the mood, looking at her with a gentle expression. Lettice gracefully curtsies while thanking him for visiting her kingdom. She blushes intensely as the prince's attention remains fixed on her. Zephyus emphasizes that she is absolutely irreplaceable in his life. Lettice stares back, overwhelmed by his persistent and bold affection. He requests that she call for him immediately if trouble arises. The princess turns back, her thoughts clearly in a state of turmoil. A royal attendant arrives, carrying a birdcage with a special delivery. A beautiful blue bird chirps from inside its ornate gold cage. Lettice is enchanted by the adorable bird the prince has presented. Zephyus whispers that the bird will keep them connected while apart. He tells her to cherish the creature as if it were himself. The princess holds the cage while the aide watches from behind. With a playful, heart-blown kiss, the prince makes his grand departure. Diavel and Meldick stand by Lettice as the intense meeting concludes. Tense eyes meet in the heavy silence. Lettice confesses she is much older. She worries he dislikes an old woman. Diavel insists she is the nation's heart. He demands she trust his true words. A sharp, quick clack sounding Magnus's entry. King Magnus summons Diavel back to council. The grand hall stands cold and empty. Diavel questions the absence of other members. Knights explain the session was abruptly dismissed. A sharp, quick thud sounding follows Meldick's frustration. Diavel orders Meldick to watch over Lettice. He considers letting her visit the courtyard. The royal garden blooms with safe tranquility. He notes the garden's connection to her mother. Lettice remains silent, lost in her thoughts. They walk toward the palace's outdoor grounds. Diavel assigns 2 knights to escort Latus. Randolph and Eric bow in loyal agreement. Memories of her mother fill Lettice's mind. She recalls her childhood bond with Zephyus. A tender hug from the past surfaces. A soft, sudden squeal sounding marks her blush. Meldick notices her sudden, deep state of reflection. A soft, sudden pop sounding accompanies her smile. They arrive at the magnificent glass greenhouse. Lettice enters the sunlit and flowery sanctuary. A soft, sudden sigh sounding follows the guards. Knights prepare to stand watch at the door. Sunlight illuminates the peaceful interior of the greenhouse. A bright, sudden chime sounding marks her wonder. An empty swing evokes memories of the past. Flashbacks show family moments shared on the swing. She gazes at the garden with quiet longing. The princess stands still, draped in melancholy. Meldick asks if she still loves Zephyus. A heavy, sudden thud sounding echoes her shock. She turns away to hide her pained expression. Lettice offers a gentle, sad smile in response. She recalls believing Zephyus had chosen another. Meldick watches her with a somber, knowing gaze. He offers to reveal the truth of the past. Lettice looks at him with newfound wary interest. He reveals the emperor forced the engagement's end. The princess is stunned by the knight's revelation. A flashback shows Zephyus pleading far. King Magnus barred the prince from her sight. Zephyus vowed to never give up on her. Magnus harshly rejects the prince's desperate pleas. The prince is forced to leave the palace. Meldick desperately pleads with the walking king. Cold clouds drift across a dark sky. Zephyus chases after the departing King Magnus. Lettice remains silent, her face flushed red. Zephyus holds a bright sunflower bouquet alone. He waits patiently outside the palace gates. Meldick watches the prince from the shadows. The prince approaches and identifies the knight. Zephyus asks for a difficult royal favor. Meldick reluctantly refuses with a deep apology. Zephyus begs to resolve their painful misunderstanding. Meldick yields, prompting the prince's deep gratitude. Diavel shouts in rage amidst falling petals. Meldick stands alone over the discarded flowers. A soft, sudden rustle sounding marks the delivery. Meldick reflects somberly on those past events. Snow falls gently over the grand palace. A sharp, quick click sounding marks her opening the door. Meldick presents the sunflowers to the princess. Lettice questions the sender's mysterious, hidden identity. She recognizes the bouquet's deep sentimental significance. A sharp, quick gasp sounding marks her realization. She recalls rumors of a set marriage. A vision of a wedding ceremony surfaces. Lettice prepares to offer her sisterly blessing. A soft, sudden crack sounding marks her acceptance. The pair shares a wordless, heavy moment. Meldick bows deeply while offering an apology. Lettice expresses gratitude for his newfound honesty. A soft, sudden thud sounding echoes their distance. Meldick explains his limited perspective of history. A vision of a romantic proposal surfaces. Lettice regrets the harsh decisions she forced. She recalls the day they officially separated. Sorrow clouds the blonde princess's blue eyes. A soft, sudden pop sounding marks her departure. Lettice turns back with a pained expression. The scene shifts back to the birdcage. A deep blush spreads across her cheeks. She gazes at the beautiful blue bird. Lettice reacts with surprise to a discovery. A secret letter is tied to the bird. A sharp, quick clack sounding marks her reach. A soft, sudden rustle sounding follows her touch. Lettice reads the message with wide-eyed shock.